Hi, and welcome to day 3 of 23 Days of Astrology with Marjorie. Today's topic is becoming an astrologer. I'm going to share a little bit of my story with you and tell you how I became an astrologer. So I'm Marjorie, and a little more about my big three are I'm a 10th house Cancer sun, I am a Libra rising, and I have a Sagittarius moon in the 3rd house. So I started studying astrology a little over 5 years ago. So even though I have a couple of certifications now and I am an astrologer, I always consider myself a student of astrology and always will consider myself to be a student of astrology because it is not a topic that you can really I was going to use the word master, but maybe there are some people who have mastered it. I don't think it's a topic I will ever master. So it's a topic that I will continually be able to grow and learn through. So I just always call myself a student of astrology. So it's been about 5 years since I dropped my anchor in astrology. And prior to that, I was dabbling a little of this and a little of that. I was trying to hone in some psychic skills. I was trying to get a grip on numerology and I was exploring astrology. All these things were very interesting to me. And it was in like a psychic summit with John Edwards. Do you remember him from that show Crossing Over? I liked him. And he had said, this was a little over 5 years ago in this psychic summit I was listening to, that in order to hone your psychic abilities or whatever it was that you're working towards, you have to anchor into something. And at that moment, it made me realize that astrology is where I want to drop my anchor. It's where I felt like continuously pulled towards. And I could tell in the beginning that there was so much to astrology. It was vast and it was complex. And there were just multiple versions of it. And there was conflicting information. And I didn't know which sources were good. And it was the kind of thing that like I had to get all in to feel good about having an understanding. And that was the point in time where I decided to drop my anchor in astrology because I had two kids by then and I was starting to see, how different they were. And I was turning to astrology for some insights actually on their moon signs and their moon sign, understanding where each of their moons were and what that meant proved to be really helpful and like fruitful and gave me some tools as a parent. So I was like, maybe there's something to this. So that's why I really started moving further in that direction. And then when I heard that and I dropped my anchor, the rest was history. So so it's not that I'm not interested in other forms of divination. I've been self-studying tarot for almost a year now, which is kind of exciting, but I kind of hit pause on everything else and I really wanted to immerse myself in astrology and see what that would be like and how that would change my understanding of it. So I have two certifications under Adam Ellenboss of Nightlight Astrology. And the reason I chose Adam for my teacher was because I had gone to see him speak in 2019 and 2019, 2020. It was right before the pandemic. Anyway, I'd gone to see him speak in person, and he was doing there at the NCGR, a local chapter in the Philadelphia area. He was doing a talk on the nodes of the moon, and it was at like a community grocery store, community room. And I was like, yes. So I went, and I was hooked. I knew that Adam was the teacher for me, and he's who I wanted to study astrology under. I didn't anticipate enrolling in courses as quickly as I did, but then when the pandemic happened, the timing worked out. So in 2020 was when I enrolled in his course. I really liked, I did both year one and year two of his certifications. He offers a few others as well. what I really liked about his program was that it was very structured. He is an excellent teacher. And it was a challenging program. There was homework and there was a lot of reading, and I love stuff like that. If you don't love stuff like that, you don't have to do it, actually. You don't even have to take the certification course at the end if you don't want to. But that's what I was after, because to become an astrologer, you don't, as of right now, as far as I understand, there's no overarching governing body that says you have to pass this exam to practice as an astrologer. So that's something that you want to be careful of. If you are choosing an astrologer, you want to ask them, what is your experience and who have you studied under and what schools of thought do you subscribe to? Not to challenge them, but to make sure who you're spending your time with and who is sharing their interpretations of your life, essentially, with you. Make sure that they have proper training. So I would definitely suggest that if you're looking for an astrologer. Now, if you're looking to become an astrologer, you don't technically need to have this certification. To me, that felt very important. I don't need somebody to tell me that you have to have this or you don't have to have this, but I wanted to make sure that I was practicing in a way that was educated. I wanted to learn from somebody who had a good deal of experience. I wanted to learn from somebody whose style resonated with me, and I saw that when I saw him speak. And it was important to me that the program was rigorous. So if you're going to take on a course of study, I definitely think you should sit down and ask yourself, what kind of student am I? What kind of things are important to me? What do I want in a teacher? And I asked myself those questions, and that's how I found myself in the Nightlight program. So now that I have graduated with year 1 and year 2 certifications, I am, I've been practicing for a couple of years now, and I'm also enrolled in a certification program with astrologer Danielle Blackwood, who this program is incredibly different than the Nightlight one, which the Nightlight one is very technical and foundational, which is what I was looking for at that time. But here, with what I'm working on now with Danielle Blackwood, it's a goddess class of exploring the goddess archetype through the zodiacal calendar. And each month we meet and we explore themes and myths associated with each sign. And it's been really like a nice contrast to the coursework that I've already had. This is really adding like a lot of layers of storytelling, and she has a beautiful ability to convey myth and nuance, and you can tell her fascination with the stories that she's sharing with you. It almost like makes them come alive. So I'm in that program right now. I'm about halfway done. I'm really enjoying it. And then, whenever I get the opportunity to enroll in, not just taking in content like what's happening in the sky right now, I also love to attend, online workshops or different talks that are available through many different associations, or sometimes just private practices that put them out there for you. And Nightlight Astrology actually does a speaker series. I'm not sure how many times a year, but I think it's at least, I don't know if it's seasonal or if it's biannual, but they do an excellent speaker series where they bring in all different speakers on all different topics for a variety of learning, like of levels of learning. And that's really fun to kind of like try on different schools of thought or try on different techniques that maybe you haven't been exposed to yet, but they might offer like a menu of like, here's what you can do. And you might decide to move in that direction. So before I became an astrologer, I'm also a graduate of Temple University School of Tourism and Hospitality Management. I worked in hospitality in the city of Philadelphia and conventions for several years. And it's fun now because I'm really taking that event experience and the hospitality experience that is a big part of me. And merging it with my love of astrology and sharing sharing astrology in ways that bring people together. So it's fun to kind of merge those two parts of me. I'm also an MBA dropout. So I've half of an MBA, which technically is not an MBA. But I did go to school and finished about half of the curriculum. And I decided not to return to my MBA coursework for a few reasons. One was that was when I became a mother, and time just felt very different afterwards. And necessarily, I wasn't super passionate about the program. I did learn some amazing things, which I'll share next, but it wasn't, whenever I was there, I wasn't like, yes, this is where I'm supposed to be. Like I felt when I was studying tourism, or like I felt when I was studying astrology. The MBA program didn't give me that. So that was one clue that maybe I shouldn't continue with this. The other one was the second one was money. It's incredibly expensive, and I'm still paying off the loans that I incurred from the first half of the MBA, which isn't the best. However, I can dwell on that, or I can look at it like this. I was supposed to be in that program because there was a professor in there who was so philosophical and interesting and fun and nice and funny. And his specialty was organizational psychology. And he exposed me, and Sean, my husband Sean, was in the program with me too. And he exposed me to so many ideas that take up a lot of space in me now, and have since I met him, but maybe were like lying dormant inside of me. And I didn't even know, I didn't have words to articulate things I was interested in if my path didn't cross with him. So Dr. Smither, if you're listening, thank you. He was the one, that exposed me to Goleman's work on emotional intelligence, which I think I mentioned in my last video. And I also took a course called Self-Assessment for Leadership. And he taught that, and I took it with my husband, Sean. So that was a really interesting course to study, because we would take like Myers-Briggs and personality assessments. All these things that are very interesting to me. And I was sitting with my husband, we were newlyweds at the time, and it was interesting to think like, oh, that's why you behave like this when we get into an argument. And that's why I do this when we're in this kind of a situation. So that was an eye-opening course to be in, especially with my partner. And the work of Dr. Smither through that MBA program really exposed me to a lot of my passions. And he was one of the first people that helped me understand the importance of reframing something, and changing the way in which we view it and looking at it. I remember I still go through my notes, and I drew a picture of a window, and he explained, like, if we reframe things, it's like you're looking out a window, but you're standing in a different position. So the way that you see it is differently. And now I feel like that translates to astrology, because with so many house systems and people, even I asked this as an early astrologer, how do I know which house system to choose? How do I know which lens to look through? And you don't really. You have to move towards the one that resonates with you, and the one that, for me, it's the one that makes sense to my brain. I have a kind of chaotic brain, so whole house system is very organized, and it helps quiet a lot of that chaos in my brain. So that's the one that I use, and that's the one that I was trained under in nightly astrology, and it really resonates with me, and it works well for me. But I've had readings in different house systems, and they've spoken to me on a very deep level. So I see the value in all the different house systems, and they remind me of what Dr. Smither used in his example. It's just looking out of a window. You're looking out of a window when you look through the house system, but you may just be standing in a different point. So you see a little bit of a different perspective. So between my Temple undergrad, my MBA dropout half degree, and my astrology certifications, they all seem somewhat unrelated, but I can reflect back and see how each one of them was a stepping stone. And it's kind of like we all carry like a suitcase through life, and we put things in our suitcase that we bring with us, and they might not make sense later on. But now I'm pulling on a lot of the knowledge that I learned in that MBA program, or a lot of the experiences that I've been through in my tourism and hospitality work, and later in my convention work. I'm using that to plan workshops and to plan wellness retreats and all kinds of things. So my experience is kind of merging together, even where it felt unrelated to me before. So I bring all that with me into my astrology practice. And I'm also a mother, a wife, a writer, a soap maker. I've had a handmade soap business I had it for about 5 years, and then I decided to close it down when I started practicing, when I became an astrologer, because I just couldn't do both the way that I had wanted to. And I was a writer all the while when I had the soap business and now, and I wasn't willing to let the writing go. So I couldn't figure out a way to do all three, the soap making, the writing, and the astrology. So it was the soap making that had to go. But that was a really fun creative outlet for me. And I liked researching recipes. It was very, scientific, calculating the lie and the measurements, and just making products for my family. And I still make things and share them with people as gifts from time to time. I also love to travel, even though the older I get, the harder it feels. I get a lot more motion sickness, a lot more exhausted. I just don't travel as well anymore, but I still love it. And I just have to prepare myself differently. And I love coffee shops, libraries, and the post office. I love the post office. There's a lot of interesting people in the post office. If you ever have a chance to go, I recommend it. And back to the libraries. I love libraries, and when we go on trips or family vacations, I'm always trying to convince my family to check out the local library. No one else is as enthusiastic as I am about it, but I recommend that too. Okay, and lastly, I wanted to leave you with some homework. So remember how I was talking about like my experience and how it seemed unrelated, but really it's coming together? I want you to reflect on that for yourself. I want you to think about where you've been and, different jobs that you've had, different certifications you've accumulated, different courses you've been in, or this could be non-work related as well. And I want you to kind of meditate on like what kind of commonality or what kind of thread do you see woven through that? Or how are you pulling on past experiences and past trainings and really using it for now? And the point of this is to help us see that a lot of what we do throughout our life is a stepping stone to where we are headed and where we are now. So I think that's a fun activity to reflect on. And if you're interested in homework, go ahead and take a few minutes to do that now. All right. Well, until next time, I appreciated sharing my experience with you today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.